Coming up on this podcast, the most effective ways to fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. We will uncover today the best ways to fall asleep faster and sleep for longer and deeper and better sleep with the ultimate nighttime routine.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation.
Hello again. Yes, still in Thailand and in my sort of echoey villa today. It's about 11:30 in the morning. I'm recording this podcast intro. I'm very hot, actually. I've turned the fans off to stop too much background noise. I got up very early and went to my local coffee shop, the French Bakery. Did a couple of hours of writing this morning, and then I've done a little bit of exercise outside, 20 minutes meditating in the sun, and then come in to record these podcast intros, and then I'm off for a fried rice. So it's a good life, really. And today, this podcast that I recorded a couple of weeks ago here in Thailand with Matt Gallant, completely opposite ends of the world and complete opposite ends in terms of time zones. It was very late his time, or quite late his time and quite early my time. And this was one of the podcasts that I've actually enjoyed recording most in recent times. And I try not to say that unless I really mean it. And occasionally I come out of the podcast recording studio, which is basically my bedroom here in Thailand. And I say to my wife, Faith, oh my God, I'm changing this and this and this. And that is what happened with Matt Gallant. So today, we look at nighttime routines, how more sleep is not necessarily the best remedy for energy, the most effective ways to fall asleep and stay asleep longer, what you should be doing in the couple of hours before bed. And there's some stuff, look, if you've been following my podcast, you'll know some of the basics. You'll know some of the stuff around red light, but it is so in-depth. And Matt really knows his topic. We talk about melatonin, how you should almost never take it. And I just think that it was a revelatory podcast. You know, sleep deprivation is the great health challenge of the 21st century. And sleep-deprived people, the level of activity in the hippocampus is almost non-existent. No new memories are stored effectively. It affects every process when you're not sleeping right. And I found some of this completely new information, some of this good reminders, and Matt's just a very entertaining person to talk to as well, who's right at the top of his game. So, Matt Gallant, obviously, just to give you a quick introduction, he is one of the founders and one of the people who set up Bioptimizers, who were my podcast partners for quite a long time. They're not anymore, but they make brilliant products, and I still use them. And there is a discount code if you want to try their product, Sleep Breakthrough. So that is definitely worth it as well. And that is sleepbreakthrough.com/Zestology. Sleepbreakthrough.com/Zestology. Use the code Zestology10. But honestly, you don't need to use that product to get loads from this podcast. We do actually really like Sleep Breakthrough in this house. And they're not my podcast partners anymore. So I feel very good about telling you about their stuff. And just, you know, all of their products are great, particularly like the magnesium product and the Sleep Breakthrough product as well. But if you go to sleepbreakthrough.com/Zestology, you get more details on that. It's all about falling asleep easier. Anyway, that's just an aside. Here he is, Matt Gallant on Zestology. Okay, Matt, we're recording. How you doing?
Doing great, man. It's great. Always exciting to talk to fellow biohackers and especially talk about sleep, one of my favorite topics.
Yeah. No, see, I mean, we've just been talking about where we live in the world, and as you know, I'm in Thailand recording this, and you live in Panama, don't you?
Yeah. And, when you travel, as you are right now, I think you become even more hyper aware of the criticalness of sleep. Like that's my biggest pain point in general with travel is I wish there was hyper optimized sleep hotels and resorts and things like that. So yes, sleep is critical.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried, listen, the topic of this discussion today was your topic at the biohacking conference when you crushed it with your keynote, which was essentially what you learned from spending $45,000 on sleep. And I'm really looking forward to talking about that. And I have tried all sorts of different things, including the new Biooptimizer Sleep product, which we'll get onto, which keeps disappearing from my house. And that's because my wife likes it so much, she sort of takes it off and hides it in places. It's brilliant. And then I've tried all sorts of tech as well, including the human charger. Did you ever try that one?
Yep.
What did you think?
Yeah, it's great. For people that live in cold climates, we can start getting right into it. So light is critical. And obviously Andrew Huberman's been screaming from the rooftops about getting light into your eyes in the morning. But what was brilliant about the human charger is if you're living in these brutally cold climates, like we were just talking about before we started recording, like in Canada, it's a little rough to go outside when it's -40. So these human charger, which would blast your brain through your ear canal with light, or retimer, which are these glasses that literally shine blue light in your eyes, or, some people have blue light panels. Any of these things are also viable options for getting light and basically kickstarting the timer that will make you feel more tired 14 to 16 hours later. So yeah, I'm a fan. I think the human charger was a cool tech. I don't think they're still around though, right? Did they go out of business?
Oh, maybe they did. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I remember specifically using it on a transatlantic flight and going out to a bar and being with like loads of people, and I was like, "Oh, sorry guys, I've got to put my earphone shining light into my ears," and they were like, "What are you doing in Puerto Rico?" Yeah, nice idea. And what we've noticed here actually is, I'm really glad that Andrew Huberman has been banging the drum for light, because it's something that I'm so fascinated by it. And we've really noticed here that actually we're sleeping a bit less than we do in the UK. And I think it's because we're getting such good quality light early in the morning that we need to shift our bedtime quite a bit earlier now as well. Our whole circadian rhythm's getting better, but that needs to be reflected in our bedtime. Have you found that?
The one thing I've noticed on how much sleep, let's say like one individual needs, there's a few variables. One is if they get healthier, they tend to need a little bit less sleep. So maybe they go from like 8.5 to 7.5. And that's something I've experienced personally. I used to sleep like 9 hours a night and literally feel horrible, getting like 15 minutes of deep sleep and feeling groggy in the morning. And now I'm sleeping about 7.5.
Really?
If I train hard with weights, like if I do squats, I did squats yesterday, or deadlifts, things like that, I'll notice I need a little bit more sleep because my nervous system obviously got taxed more. Certain supplements, like I've hyperdosed ketone esters and C60 and all kinds of things. There's certain molecules that I noticed it felt like I needed less sleep. So I think there's some variances based on the quality of sleep, how healthy you are, and also really how much you're pushing yourself through exercise or through mental exertion. Like, when we do like hardcore brain training where we're doing neurofeedback for 5-6 hours, you tend to need a little bit more REM.
Oh yeah. Have you done the neurofeedback then?
Done about 9 weeks. Like I've done 40 years of Zen 5 times, bio.
Well, great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite technologies to do. There's a new headset coming out. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's called Sensei, SENS.ai is their website. Full disclosure, I'm an advisor and we invested in them because it's the dream headset for direct to consumer. The electrodes don't need goop. It looks like a Bose headset. It's built for mobile. You can train everything from gamma to synchrony. So yeah, they're going to be shipping soon, and I'm very, very excited.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I'll be Googling that later on. I enjoyed 40 Years of Zen a lot, and I didn't do it 5 times. I've done it once. Did it definitely played a big part on my journey, but it's so expensive. So I haven't been back, but I did enjoy it. What sort of price point is the Sensei?
I think it's 1,200. It's around that range. And like, I've got a medical grade system. Like, I've got a $12,000 medical grade system in my home. I don't use it that much because it's 5-10 minutes of setup. Then you got to shower your hair unless you want to look like there's something about Mary. So this solves all of that. I mean, literally, you just spray the electrodes with water, put them on, and train. So I'm excited to do neurofeedback on a plane, on an Uber ride. Like, it's going to be amazing to just be able to train anywhere, anytime.
That's great. You have the Muse headband, which has been doing something sort of like that for a while, but I haven't really found that useful. To be honest, I like it, but I don't use it loads.
Yeah, I've talked to neuroscientists about it, and he absolutely said it was trash because the electrodes are not in the right place. The electrodes aren't very good, and it's extremely limited in what you can train. The Sensei is a lot more comparable to, again, the medical grade systems in terms of being able to train gamma and all kinds of amazing things.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you were saying just before that when people get healthier, sometimes they need a little bit less sleep, which and the converse is when you get ill, you need loads of sleep, don't you? And that is interesting. And maybe that's, I mean, I just feel so healthy and the stats on the old Oura ring prove it here. So maybe that is just need a little bit less sleep here in this and sort of the lifestyle that I've got here.
Yeah, when you look at the longevity data on sleep, there's 2 cohorts that die earlier. One is people that don't sleep enough, and the other one is people that sleep too much. So people that tend to sleep 10 plus hours actually live shorter lives on average. And I believe it's not because they're sleeping too much. I think it's just a sign that they're not as healthy and their bodies are just sleeping a lot. I saw that with a friend of mine who did pass away in his 40s, and he was a guy that slept like 10 plus hours. And yeah, so I think the sweet spot seems to be 7 to 8.5 hours.
Yeah. What else did you learn from spending 45,000 then? And I'm interested because one of the things that I think is quite hard to juggle is, you've built this big business up and there's a lot of pressures involved in that, I know. And I find that if I want to do everything that I want to do in my day in terms of looking after myself and work, it doesn't leave that much time for actually working and building a business.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that would be a whole other topic, is like really maximizing efficiency, effectiveness, and intensity. So yeah, that's a whole other topic. Like, my goal is to basically be as hyper productive as possible for about 7 or 8 hours. And then I'll work a little bit in the evening for maybe an hour or so, just clean out emails and Slack, stuff like that. So I'm probably working like 8 to 9 hours a day. And, it's just been a game of how can I be, again, more effective and build great teams and, all of those things. But yeah, we can go through kind of all my major expenses, and I'll tell you where the best bang for the buck is. So first, on the light piece, we talked about light in the morning. It's also about dimming the lights like 90 minutes before bedtime. And that makes a huge difference. You got a few options there. You can dim the lights, and now there's some great home systems like Apple's HomeKit, Google Home, where you can program all that stuff, which is great. So you don't have to think about it. You can program your lights to just start dimming. Or the other option, which a lot of people like, is red light bulbs. So now there's also like hue light bulbs, which you can program to change colors and become, again, more of a red tint as the night progresses, which is great. I've heard a lot of people love salt lamps. So they'll literally have salt lamps on at night with a dimmer. So any of these things are viable. Of course, a lot of biohackers love their blue light blocking glasses. I used to wear those. The only time I wear them is on a plane. It's awesome because there's so much blue light on a plane, and is all these bright lights going on. So if I'm doing a red eye, I'll put those on. I have those in my backpack. But you need to manage light, again, about 90 minutes before your bedtime. And that really helps signal your brain that it's time to go to sleep. It'll help your body naturally produce melatonin, which in my opinion is always a better option than taking exogenous forms of melatonin. There are certain situations where I think melatonin is a great tool. Like you just went to Thailand, for resetting your circadian clock, like 2 nights using melatonin is a great idea. I do find, I've talked to a lot of people that if they use it like 3 days in a row, they might feel more groggy. And also hyper optimizing the dose for your brain and body is critical. In my opinion, and this is very much so against the grain, a few years ago, people started talking about using 350 micrograms of melatonin. I tried that and I was still getting the side effect of waking up earlier than I wanted to. Like when I use melatonin, like when I use, say, half a milligram, doesn't matter. I'll wake up after 5-6 hours. My body temp spikes up 2 or 3 hours earlier. And then I just don't feel like going back to bed, which, by the way, is a great hack if you know you're only going to be sleeping 5 hours because you got to catch a flight or something. That's when I'll use a larger dose of melatonin because I want to wake up feeling better, and it does help with that. But in general, I think people are overdosing on melatonin. And if you look at the research, the brain produces 10 to 80 micrograms. And when I found that, I'm like, that makes sense because, again, I'm using these higher dosages, didn't work. So we built another product called Dream Optimizer, which is coming out this month in February. And it's about 18 to 20 micrograms per spray. It's a spray. And we decided to go with the spray because it allows people to get the perfect dose for their brains and bodies. And when I use like around 60 micrograms, like 3 sprays, I don't get the side effects. I don't get the wake up effects, and I still get the falling asleep faster. So I think that melatonin has its place, but people, I think, are just using it incorrectly and using it too frequently. I think maybe 2, 3, 4 days a week is enough. There's far better sleep molecules than melatonin.
Yeah. So you were spraying something in your mouth before we started talking. Was that it? That
was Zamner. So Zamner juice. Again, we have a nootropics company. I don't know if you've tried the nootropics yet, but yeah, that has GABA in it. So we could segue to the sleep molecules in a minute, but yeah, GABA is a great sleep molecule. GABA is great to use in the evenings. I like GABA around this time. It's around 8:30 p.m. here. But just to continue on the list of things I've invested in. So again, just to rewind a little bit, I was tracking my sleep with the Zeo, got the Oura Ring V1, and back to when I was sleeping like 9 hours a night, I saw that I was only getting 0 to 15 minutes of deep sleep a night, feeling like crap. My testosterone crashed in the low 200s. My body fat was the highest ever in a DEXA scan. And I just had that eureka moment that the number one thing I can invest in for my life, for my health, is sleep. And like, my advice to people is like, if you have to, sell your car, sell most of your possessions and invest in a great sleep setup, because the ROI on that in terms of your productivity, your health, your well-being, it is just enormous. I don't think people realize how impactful great sleep can be. So one of my first big investments was a custom-made mattress by a company called Essentia. I spent about 6 months looking at mattresses, and I realized that if you're a side sleeper, you really want to use a memory foam mattress. Why? Because you need to spread out the pressure evenly from your head to your toes. What happens is if you have blood flow constriction, let's say in your shoulders, you're working out, you're a guy or you're a woman with wider hips or larger legs. If you're sleeping on a harder mattress, you're going to have blood flow constriction in those areas, and you're going to be tossing and turning, which is going to pull you out of deep sleep. You're going to have a much more shallow sleep while that's occurring. So anyways, I bought a $10,000 custom-made mattress. My wife's side is completely different than mine. So when I roll over, it's always interesting to experience that. But yeah, it's made so that my shoulder sinks into the mattress instead of my shoulder kind of being pressed in and compressed. And I've had shoulder issues because of bad mattresses in the past. So yeah, a great mattress is key. Of course, there's a ton of mattress companies. My suggestion for picking the right density of a memory foam is if you're heavier, if you're shorter, and if you're wider, you need a softer mattress. If you're taller, lighter, and narrower, then go with a denser mattress, like a little bit of a firmer one. So picking the right mattress for your body, I think is really critical. And there's a ton of mattress companies out there, and I can't vouch for them. I haven't tried them, but picking the right mattress is key. Blacked out my room. And again, that's a relatively inexpensive thing to do. And if you're living in a city, it's critical. Like I used to sleep with a sleep mask until I realized that, or found out that your skin has photoreceptors. And if light is hitting your skin, it will disrupt your melatonin production. And the other issue with sleep mask is it can cause your head to overheat. And it's well known that you want your head to be about 1 degree cooler than your body, which leads me to the next major point. And back to when I was sleeping horribly, the main sleep disruptor at the time was overheating. Now, again, I live in Panama. The temperature in my bedroom was 16, 17 degrees Celsius, 65 to 67 Fahrenheit, and it was still overheating. Why? Because your body will trap heat between your skin and your mattress. So if you don't have something like a chili pad, which is a great technology that allows you to cool water and push it into a sheet that goes underneath your bed sheet and allows you to control that temperature. I mean, that was probably the number one investment I've made. Like if I was to travel and you sell, okay, you can only have one toy, one sleep technology, that would be it. Because when I travel,
wow,
I can still overheat a little bit. So if you don't have a chili pad, definitely look into that. They just released their third iteration, and it's a very powerful tech. And my wife has her side, so she can adjust her temp, and I can adjust mine, and it's an absolute game changer. So
I had one for a while. It was quite a big unit.
Yeah, it's a big unit. Yeah, it's a little tough to travel with. Unfortunately, I have traveled with it like during brain trainings because I'm like I need great sleep this week. It's critical, but yeah, it's a little bit cumbersome to travel with, unfortunately. So yeah, it's a great tool. And then there's other sleep molecules that will actually help cool your body down, like glycine. So glycine is an amino acid and will actually help cool your body down. It'll boost your REM. And my favorite thing about glycine is if you do 3 grams and you don't sleep enough, let's say you only slept 5 or 6 hours, you'll actually feel much better the next day than if you didn't take glycine. And that's what they've shown in the literature. So in terms of the perfect temp for perfect sleep, early on, you want very cold. That'll help maximize your deep sleep. And then as you're moving into your REM sleep, which tends to be later, you want to actually start moving the temperature up a little bit. And some of the newer technologies like the V3 version of the Chili Pad does that. You can adjust the temperature and it'll help boost your deep, boost your REM, and you'll wake up feeling better. So that's kind of the second major piece is, again, just this temperature. Then I spent a lot of money on things that did not work. So let me save everybody a little bit of money. One is a Faraday cage. If you don't know what a Faraday cage is, it's a material that essentially blocks EMF. And of course, in the biohacking community, a lot of people have been screaming about the dangers of EMFs. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but when I literally have like a $2,000 silver net that surrounds my bed, and it just hasn't moved the needle. In my opinion, at this point, I think some people are more sensitive to EMFs. And the other main thing with EMFs is proximity. So, of course, I don't have a Wi-Fi router in my bedroom. My walls are made out of cement. So even though I'm seeing a signals are very weak. So again, I think that maybe for some people, EMFs are a big deal, but that didn't pan out. Probably the biggest waste of money was PEMF devices. So PEMF devices, I'm a big fan, by the way, of PEMF. I think they're great tools. the Beamer, the Pulse, a bunch of other ones. And I like using them, but for sleep, they were hit or miss. Like some nights they would improve my sleep, and other nights I literally felt absolutely destroyed in the morning. Like it was completely disrupting my sleep patterns and pull me out of sleep.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Bon Charge. I have wanted to team up with them for so long because it's such an easy sell for me. You know, when you use a company's products, it's just very easy. And I've been on board with blue light blocking glasses ever since I was told about them. I think Luke Story told me about them about 7 or 8 years ago. And Bon Charge make beautiful blue light blocking glasses for nighttime. If you go to boncharge.com/Tony, then you can see their nighttime glasses, their daytime glasses, their computer glasses, their sunglasses, and then they've got a load of cool other stuff as well. Red light therapy, blue light blocking, lighting, blackout sleep masks, EMF and radiation blocking as well, all in the name of better sleep and better health. What I think they've done is they've just sort of taken all these concepts of good health and they've said, we're going to do this properly. If you go to their site, you just know they do it properly. They ship worldwide. They ship to the US and the UK. You can use the code Tony20 for 20% off absolutely everything. And check out the company because it's a really cool company. They're on a mission to optimize people's sleep, well-being, and recovery. But what they want to do is they use products that are science-based and rigorously tested. So go to boncharge.com/Tony, see a big cheesy picture of me on there, and you'll also see the discount code 20% off using the code Tony20. And I do think the glasses are a bit redder than other glasses, which is brilliant. So the last hour before bed, I think it's really good to just block out all the light. I love them. Tony20, boncharge.com/Tony. Now back to the show.
One tech that a lot of people know about that is powerful, and this is one of the tools that I would say you might sleep a little less in because you're really getting a lot of benefits. It's called Elanra. It's ELANRA. It's from an Australian company, and they used to call it an air ionizer. I think now they're calling it like bionic air or something like that. And what it does, it creates these hypercharged oxygen molecules. It's not an oxygen machine. It is charging oxygen molecules in the air. I think they're using it in hospitals. You can program it with frequencies. Like this thing is not woo. If you put an ORP meter in front of the needles, it's got like these 6 or 8 needles. If you put a ORP, which actually measures the antioxidant capabilities of water or other substances, it's the highest readings I've ever seen. Like this is hypercharged, like hyper negatively charged molecules that will essentially detoxify the air by making contact with, all kinds of toxins in the air, which I do think that using a good air filter system in your bedroom is a good idea. I think air quality matters. Some other little hacks with air is there's these nostril expanders you can use. They're very inexpensive. They're like $6, $7, $8. That can help you get more uptake. The other one too that is a little bit freaky if you haven't done it is the balloon. Have you ever done the balloon? The balloon up the nose?
No.
Okay, so
I've never even.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of the. Yeah, if you go see certain chiropractors, and it's a very common thing. Like you see a lot of fighters will get this done. They literally push a balloon up your nose, like into your nose cavity, and then they pump it, and it just basically it's like a facial adjustment. It's a little bit freaky.
Yeah.
But man, you feel like you just breathe better. And of course, a lot of people use CPAP machines because they're not breathing properly. Yeah. And a lot of people will snore all night. Some people like lip taping. I've never done that. I've never had an issue. Okay. But the balloon, the nostril expander, lip taping, Elanra, and an air filter are all good tools that can just make sure that you're breathing in the best air possible and you're breathing in as much as possible.
Yeah, the balloon sounds good. I think that would really, I would like that. I sometimes feel like my nostrils need a little bit of an expansion.
Yeah.
And that sounds very unpleasant during, but probably quite nice afterwards.
It doesn't hurt, but it makes this crack that you're like, did my face just break? So I'm not probably selling it very well, but it doesn't hurt at all. And then you're like, wow, I can breathe. It's a really cool thing. I'm actually probably overdue for one. And if anybody's ever had any nasal injuries, broken nose or stuff like that, it's probably a great idea to do that. So yeah, the PMF. So on the PMF device, I don't know if you remember this, there was a device called the Delta Sleeper, which you would put on your brachial nerve and push a button. It would just trigger delta waves through your nervous system for about 15 minutes. And that was a cool one for helping people fall asleep faster, but I typically don't have that issue. One device that is a really great biohacking technology is called the NanoV. You probably heard of the NanoV.
I have, yeah.
So the NanoV for sleep is something that not a lot of people talk about. If you run that machine long enough, like I'm talking about 75 to 90 minutes, like a typical session is like 20 minutes. But if you run that for about 75 to 90 minutes, you'll feel your nervous system shift over to parasympathetic, like shift in a major way, not a subtle shift, but you're like, whoa, I am absolutely parasympathetic. And for people that don't understand the nervous system, you essentially have two modes and it's a continuum, it's a spectrum. And most people don't spend enough time and energy and awareness managing their nervous system, right? They wake up, go on their phones, drink a cup of coffee, drive to work, come back, work, hang around with the kids, go back on their phones, and then pass out. So there's not a lot of parasympathetic activity. And, taking a little bit of time throughout the day to play with your kids, play with your pets, go outside, go in nature, meditate, do non-sleep deep breaths are all great ways to manage your nervous system. Magnesium is, in my opinion, the number one molecule to really shift your nervous system into parasympathetic. GABA is really powerful. L-theanine. So those are really good molecules to kind of help downshift your nervous system, which will improve your sleep. Like anything you can do to start calming down your nervous system before bed will typically translate to better sleep. And the NanoV is effective for that. And then, 10, 15 grand minimum on sleep molecules, sleep peptides. There's not much I haven't tried on the sleep molecule front.
How much of and so then obviously you brought out the sleep breakthrough product, and what of those things that you just mentioned did you put in there?
All of it. So, when we design products at Bioptimizers, our strategy is, first of all, our goal is to build the most effective formula in its class always. And to do that, we believe that when you stack different compounds and you're targeting different pathways, you can get a much better result. So with Sleep Breakthrough, we targeted multiple pathways. The first one was, let's get the body to produce more melatonin. How do we do that? We feed it magnesium. So we selected magnesium bisglycinate, which has the best data on sleep. But that's not enough. You got to give it the cofactors. And what cofactors do is they help transform the building block into the target molecule. So P5P, and by the way, this is some fresh data that literally just came out of our lab on Tuesday. If you combine, first of all, you combine multiple magnesiums, you will get a higher uptake in red blood cells. And then if you add P5P to it, we saw a 30 to 40% higher uptake of magnesium in red blood cells. So P5P, which is a bioactive form of vitamin B6, is a phenomenal supplement, but when you combine it with magnesium, it's great.
Just on that, by the way, at the start of this podcast, I was thinking I must mention to Matt how much of a sleep impact I find with P5P. And I don't take it every night, but when I take it during the day, I notice it. If I take it at night, I really notice it. And what you're saying is it's a cofactor of magnesium, and that's why it works so well. Is that right?
Correct.
Wow. Because it really is. If I'm sort of struggling with sleep a bit, I'll bring that in the evenings, and that will really help. So that's fascinating.
Yeah. 30 to 40% more uptake in your red blood cells of the magnesium. That's powerful. P5P is a great supplement.
I've done.
So then we focused on, what are the minerals we can give the body to again, downshift the nervous system, quiet down the brain. We talked about magnesium, but probably the most fascinating one was potassium. I co-formulated this with Mark Effinger, who's an absolute genius. One of my, top formulators we've ever worked with. He's amazing. And when we were formulating, he's like, we need potassium in this. I'm like, why? Because, I'm a big fan of potassium for hydration. He's like, well, first of all, it's going to help relax the heart and actually slow down the heart rate a little bit. I'm like, that's interesting. And then I dove into the sleep literature or just literature in general, research around potassium, and found this research from 2004 on odd mutant fruit flies. And what they found was that if they exposed their neurons to sodium, it would excite their brains. It would excite and turn on neurons. And then when they would expose the brain to potassium, it would quiet down the neurons. So that was a really powerful, discovery, because, I'm a big fan of using sodium in the morning. If I'm drinking coffee, like black coffee, I'll actually put salt in it. It becomes this nice, savory coffee drink. And, sometimes I'll put Himalayan salt in my water. I think salt in general is just amazing. But in the evening, you want to shift to potassium. And by the way, there's a great potassium chloride salt called New Salt that you can use to kind of salt your food with, for your dinner, which is a great strategy. But the other benefit of getting potassium at night is that it can minimize your bathroom trips while you're sleeping. Because when your sodium to potassium ratio is out of balance, which almost everyone is, you're going to go to urinate more frequently. And it happens to me a lot because I'm ketogenic. I do cyclical keto. And sometimes if I'm not really mindful of my potassium intake, I'm just going to the restroom very frequently. Whereas if I get my potassium levels up, I don't have that issue. So potassium is great. Then we have calcium, which again, our grandmother's advice around drinking a warm glass of milk before bed was great, because calcium will also act as a cofactor to convert tryptophan into melatonin. So tryptophan, of course, a lot of people have heard of tryptophan is a great amino acid for sleep, but you need the calcium to help convert that into melatonin. And finally, we have zinc. Zinc's another amazing mineral for your nervous system, and it's a cofactor for melatonin. So again, you can hear me say the word cofactor over and over again, because when we formulate, we're hyper-focused on that because we've seen over and over again in the lab, we can improve the effectiveness of something 50 to 200 to 300% by just adding the right cofactors. Then we have GABA. So we tested all kinds of GABA, from valerian root to traditional GABA to pharma GABA. And we selected pharma GABA because it is the strongest. Like pharma GABA hits different. It hits harder. It's very effective. It's a little more expensive, but we don't care. So what is GABA? GABA is a neurotransmitter. We love to call it the molecule of chill. And when you look at insomniacs, they're about 30% deficient in GABA. So a lot of people that struggle with sleep are just GABA deficient. The other amazing thing about pharma GABA is that it's actually lowers beta brainwave activity. So you've done 40 years of Zen, you understand brainwaves in general. And when you look at insomniacs, they have hyperactive beta brainwave activity. That's why they can't slow down their brainwaves, right? So a great strategy for people struggling to fall asleep is you want to lower your beta brainwaves and increase alpha brainwaves. And that, again, just helps you get ready for a great night's sleep. So there's two molecules that'll do that. One is GABA. Again, it lowers beta brainwaves, increases alpha. And the other one's L-theanine. So L-theanine will also lower beta brainwave activity and increase alpha brainwave activity. But L-theanine has probably been my favorite sleep molecule for many, many years. Like I've used it probably 99+% of evenings for the last 6-7 years. It always works. It relaxes you without creating drowsiness. So we threw that in there. And then the final major molecule is glycine. We talked about that earlier. And then flavoring wise, we just used blue spirulina, some stevia, and we added some silica from bamboo. So we have some bamboo extract, which is another mineral, but we use it more for texture and mixture and for flavoring.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It's a great product. I was going to ask you about the blue color, and that explains that as well. So it's unique. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a beautiful blue color. My favorite description of the flavor of Sleep Breakthrough is it tastes like the 80s. So I don't know what that means, but I really love the sound of that.
Excellent. I know people can go to sleepbreakthrough.com/zestology and use the code zestology10 for a little chunk off if they want to try it and see that 80s color. Matt, it's been great to talk to you. I've made a lot of notes, actually, some mental notes. I've even written a couple of things down here. And it even occurred to me that one of the reasons I might be sleeping less here in Thailand is simply because I haven't got all the sort of blue blocked stuff that I have at home. So we haven't got the blackout curtains in quite the same way. And you put the bathroom light on at night and it's super bright. And of course, even if you are wearing the blue blockers, as you said, the light still might be going in through the skin receptors. So I think that's something for me to think about here. And I have made an order with Bond Charge, an Australian company, to get some blue block torches to come here as well. So that's all really good. It's great. I mean, there's always a danger in these biohacking worlds of sort of slipping into the, who was it? Was it Mark Wahlberg who said he woke up at 2 a.m. and he did cryo before 4 o'clock in the morning, and he biohacked his day to the nth degree. But actually, as you say, there is nothing that matters more than a good night's sleep, so it is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly went through the phase of like, here's my finger. I've been losing body fat recently. My Oura Ring, the latest version, slipped off, and I'm like, it's probably good for me to go without tracking my sleep for a while. And of course, some people get into this stressed out phase where they're looking at their sleep data first thing and they're like, oh man, my deep sleep sucked, my REM sucked. One comment on sleep trackers, they're only about 60% accurate for assessing the exact amount of deep and REM. And I remember this one guy came up to me at an event. He's like, dude, I'm getting 5 hours of REM and 0 of deep. I'm like, that's very, very, very unlikely. You're probably getting 90 minutes of deep and 2.5, 3 hours of REM. And, again, it's using secondary metrics like heart rate variability, movement. The only way you can get accurate sleep tracking data is with electrodes on your head. You need to track brain waves. So the Oura Ring is great. I'm a huge fan. And I think really what it's great at is to give you your nervous system score in the morning. Like the readiness score, I think, is amazing. And that's a really good barometer of how your nervous system is doing in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Matt Walker on this podcast, and he said something fairly similar. He actually wears an Oura Ring, but he was like, it's a general guide. Don't take it too seriously. And it's not as good as this. He's got this sleep lab at one of the top universities in the world, and he said it's just, that's better quality in terms of the tracking. Good. Matt, it's great to talk to you, and it's almost blue blocker time for you, I think.
Well, I'm going to dim all the lights. That's what I'm going to do. Like right now, I'm literally blasting my face with 2 rings. So yeah, I'm going to go and turn off most of the lights in my home and start getting ready for sleep. So typically, again, timing wise, I'll do 2 caps of magnesium breakthrough and sleep breakthrough an hour before my target bedtime, because it hits me typically within 30 to 40 minutes. And then I'm just ready to go to bed and then get a good night's sleep.
Great. So, well, look, I'm also quite inspired by your studio setup there. I know it's an office rather than a studio, but people will be able to see it's pretty impressive. I might have to get some Zestology logos made as neon lights or something. It's brilliant.
Neon's just cool, man. I've always just loved neon lights, and it just adds a whole new vibe to your office, to your home.
Oh, it's awesome. Listen, before you go, what is one book you'd recommend and one tip for living with more energy and vitality? Obviously, you've given us a lot already, but that is a question I ask everybody.
I think one of my favorite books to recommend to people is Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David Hawkins. It's a great spiritual book. It's an incredible spiritual tool. And I'll just throw in another quick one, The Body Keeps the Score. And one more that's not released is going to be our new nutrition book coming out in September, published by Hay House.
Wow.
Really excited about that. Yeah, we've been working on this one for 3 years. It's going to be the ultimate nutrition book. I mean, we've covered every nutritional strategy, every nutritional diet. We cover every goal from athletic performance to weight loss to muscle building, nutrigenomics, like everything. So yeah, it's coming out in September. And one thing for a better life.
Energy, really. Yeah.
For energy.
Yeah.
You know what's been the biggest game changer for me? And, a couple of years ago, I was reading the Sitting is New Smoking data. That was making headlines a couple of years ago. If you remember that.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the literature, I looked at the science and realized that was a little bit of a not exactly. What was occurring is if you don't move for after 30 minutes, your body starts slowly degrading on a certain level and your energy starts dropping. And then I started looking at the impact of these micro bursts of activity, like even anything from 10 seconds to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes. And it was really impactful. So I started doing that. And usually just like a couple times a day, I'll either sprint up like a couple flights of stairs, or I'll go outside and literally do like weights for a minute or 2 minutes, or I'll rebound. But I've found, or I have a stand-up desk, I'll stand up, but just the, moving throughout the day 2 or 3 times like that has really been a game changer for my overall energy throughout the day. So for anybody listening, I'd strongly recommend, again, like every couple of hours, try to do, again, jumping jacks, push-up, squats, flight of stairs, just do something, move, get blood flow, and you'll notice a major boost in energy.
That is definitely something I notice as well. Just low level movement all day long, which isn't that compatible with podcasting. Here we are sitting down. I do want to record podcasts on the treadmill, but I haven't quite got around to it yet.
Yeah. No, yeah, movement's key. And I do have some friends that actually like to work on a treadmill. I see very low speed treadmill and they can type. So I'm not at that level. I don't know if I'm going to get a treadmill. I do have a stand-up desk, so I get a couple times a day. I'll bring it up, and that helps as well.
Yeah. I've tried working on the treadmill. It's fine for tasks that don't require too much in terms of intensity. But yeah. It's I can't imagine typing, but I could try that. Matt, it's great to talk to you. So obviously the sleep product is at sleepbreakthrough.com/zestology, and the code Zestology10, which is the normal Bioptimizers code, works. And where can so the book comes out in September?
Correct. Yeah. So we're super excited. We're going to be releasing some nutrigenomic testing and an app. So, we're here to really transform nutrition and give people kind of like all the tools that they need to create the perfect diet for them based on their genetics, their goals, and their psychology. So yeah, we're coming in with the book, the app, the testing, like all of it.
Brilliant. Really good to talk. You're going to make me poor with all the recommendations you've come up with.
I've been told that many times. I'm an expensive friend to have. So, and not because they're spending money on me, by the way. They just tend to buy a lot of good things. So
yeah. Matt, great to talk. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
That is it for this podcast. If you want to check out Matt's product, Sleep Breakthrough, you've already heard us talking about it, but it's sleepbreakthrough.com/zestology. And since I recorded this podcast, my new lights that I was perhaps talking about in this podcast, but I've been talking about quite a bit from Bond Charge, have now arrived. The blue blocking lights that are USB lights and the blue block torches as well. And do you know, something amazing has happened. We've been having these incredible nighttime conversations with these red lights on. It's like sitting around the fire. It's been so nice. It's completely changed our lighting game in this villa. And the torches are great as well, because I like to read my son a book before bed. And I was using the light on my phone, and it's quite a bright torchlight. And I was sort of aware that that's not great for him just before bed. Now I use a red torch. He can barely see the pictures in the book, but he's not getting all that blue light right before the last thing at night. You can see the pictures fine. So if you go to bondcharge.com/Tony, use the code Tony20 for 20% off their blue light blocking products. And of course, it ties in so well with what I've been speaking about today on the podcast. That is it for this Zestology. Do check out my podcast partners, Bond Charge, who help keep the lights on at Zestology. Bondcharge.com/Zestology. I'm getting very hot here. Oh, I need to go and cool down. Maybe go into my favourite. There's a sort of co-working space near here called The Hub, and you can go inside. They've got air conditioning, and a plate of fried rice with chicken is £3, and a mango shake is about £2. So it's a good deal. So I'm going to go there now. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.